We are going to establish exactly what an environmental impact assessment, or EIA, looks like in practice. By definition, an EIA is a systematic process for identifying, predicting, and evaluating the likely environmental and social effects of a proposed project. But the entire mechanism hinges on the final 4 words of that definition: before the project is approved. That specific timing is the core premise of the policy. The assessment must happen prior to authorization. Intervening before capital is allocated allows for structural changes, like relocation or total redesign, that are no longer viable once construction begins. The entire value of an EIA rests on this timing. It operates as an anticipatory tool, rather than a system of reactive penalties. Consider a reactive regulatory model. Imagine a company builds a cement plant and runs it for 2 years. Only then does the community discover that the dust causes severe respiratory issues, and the quarry dries up a stream 3 farms depended on. At this late stage, regulatory options are limited. The government can issue fines, mandate the installation of filters, or force a shutdown. Despite those penalties, the physical damage to the local environment and population is already done, and the capital is already sunk. This diagram illustrates how EIA corrects the sequence by moving the entire regulatory conversation upstream. Shifting the timeline forward enables different outcomes: changing the plant's physical design, relocating the site entirely, or denying the project before the first foundation is poured. Think of it in medical terms. The assessment is the equivalent of a physician ordering diagnostic tests prior to surgery, rather than conducting an autopsy after the fact. To use this tool effectively, we must rigorously separate EIA from adjacent regulatory instruments that often cause confusion. The first is the environmental audit. An audit is strictly backward-looking. It evaluates a facility that already exists and is currently operating to ensure it complies with its permits. Looking at this temporal diagram, the contrast is clear. While the audit points backward, an EIA points forward, evaluating a hypothetical project that does not yet physically exist. If an audit serves as the rearview mirror, assessing the road you have already traveled, then the EIA operates as the windscreen, focused on navigating future outcomes before they materialize. The second adjacent instrument we need to isolate is risk assessment. Risk assessment zeroes in on the mathematical probability and extreme consequences of specific sudden hazards. This chart maps statistical probability. Risk assessment focuses strictly on the narrow tails of this curve: acute events like chemical leaks, major explosions, or catastrophic dam failures. While often nested inside an EIA, the EIA itself covers different variables. It tracks the slow, highly probable variables sitting right in the center of the curve: routine emissions, daily water withdrawals, and gradual habitat loss over time. An EIA accounts for these grinding, daily realities alongside the potential for sudden, dramatic disasters. The third distinction lies between EIA and Strategic Environmental Assessment, or SEA. A standard EIA has a strict scale limitation. It assesses a single, isolated project. SEA evaluates high-level policies or broad developmental programs. If a government opens a coastline to industrial development, an SEA evaluates that overarching regional strategy. Within that master strategy, individual EIAs merely evaluate the specific factories built inside it. SEA exists specifically to address the systemic, cumulative impacts that a single project-level EIA cannot capture on its own. There is a common misconception built directly into the name environmental impact assessment. A rigorous modern assessment is never limited strictly to the biophysical environment. It must map out specific socioeconomic variables, identifying exactly who gets displaced, whose livelihoods depend on local resources, and whose drinking water quality will change. In some jurisdictions, this human element is integrated directly into the EIA. In others, it runs parallel as a distinct social impact assessment. Either way, they must merge into a unified assessment framework to inform the final decision. Any assessment that calculates ecological costs while ignoring the distribution of human costs has failed its foundational mandate. All of these definitions synthesize into a single unifying mental model, a sequential chain of reasoning that drives the entire assessment process. This flowchart begins with Step 1. We describe the proposed project in its entirety. Step 2. We describe the current state of the environment, establishing the absolute baseline. Step 3. We predict exactly how the introduction of the project will alter that established baseline. Step 4. We apply judgment to determine if those predicted changes actually matter. This introduces the formal concept of significance. Step 5. We formulate actionable strategies to avoid, reduce, or offset the significant impacts. This is mitigation. The ultimate destination for this logic chain is the governing body. The finalized reasoning must be handed over to a decision maker, but it also goes to a crucial co-recipient, the general public, to ensure transparent choices. Memorize this sequence. Every subsequent module in this course will zoom in on one specific link in this exact chain. Later, when you encounter complex dispersion modeling or dense significance matrices, you can avoid losing the thread by returning to this map and asking which link you are currently working on. To understand why this precise chain of reasoning exists today, we will look at its historical origins and the specific moment of public anger that forced it into existence.